Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, we have Thomas Girardi's wire fraud conviction, the EU-US split on AI data privacy, Trump's updated indictment, and TikTok's lawsuit over a deadly challenge. Let's remember Wednesday, halfway to the Labor Day weekend, and read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, August 28th, 2003, the Supreme Court of Alabama took down a monument of the Ten Commandments from its courthouse rotunda, marking the culmination of a high-profile legal battle. The monument had been installed by Chief Justice Roy Moore in 2001, who argued that it reflected the moral foundation of U.S. law. However, this act sparked a federal lawsuit, Glassroth v. Moore, in which three Alabama attorneys claimed the monument violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which prohibits government endorsement of religion. The Federal District Court for the Middle District of Alabama agreed with the plaintiffs, ordering Moore to remove the monument. Moore refused, maintaining that he had a duty to acknowledge God in his official capacity. The case was subsequently appealed to the 11th Circuit, which upheld the lower court's ruling. When Moore continued to defy the court orders, the Supreme Court of Alabama intervened, removing him from his position as Chief Justice. This case became a significant moment in the ongoing debate over the separation of church and state in the United States. It is worth noting that Roy Moore, the then Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, who so vociferously argued for the inclusion of the Ten Commandment monument, is the selfsame Roy Moore that, during his 2017 U.S. Senate campaign, saw 9 women accuse him of inappropriate conduct. 3 of the women claimed they were assaulted by Moore when they were aged 14, 16, and 28. The other 6 women described Moore pursuing relationships with them when they were as young as 16. Independent witnesses corroborated that Moore had a reputation for approaching teenage girls at a local mall. Moore's responses to the allegations were inconsistent, initially recognizing some accusers, but later denying knowledge of any of them. Thomas V. Girardi, a prominent figure in toxic tort litigation, was convicted on 4 counts of wire fraud in Los Angeles federal court. Once renowned for his work on the Erin Brockovich case and his appearances on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the disbarred attorney faced accusations of defrauding vulnerable clients. The jury reached a unanimous verdict after just 4 hours of deliberation, rejecting Girardi's defense that his cognitive decline prevented him from forming intent to commit fraud. Prosecutors argued that Girardi knowingly deceived clients, fabricating excuses to explain the missing funds, which he had already spent. The trial centered on the suffering of clients who were betrayed by Girardi in their darkest moments, leading to their financial and emotional devastation. Girardi could face up to 80 years in prison at his sentencing in December. His former CFO, Christopher Kamen, will also stand trial for related charges. The case highlights Girardi's history of evading disciplinary action despite numerous complaints and reveals potential future charges against other senior lawyers at his firm. A recent decision by a German privacy regulator has sparked intense debate about how personal data is handled by AI models like large language models or LLMs. The Hamburg Commissioner for Data Protection concluded that LLMs, despite generating personal data, do not store such information in such a way that makes it identifiable, challenging the notion that AI systems can retain personal data. This stance contradicts findings by technologists who argue that LLMs can memorize and reproduce specific data, including personal details. The German position could limit individuals' ability to control their data in AI systems, potentially leading to significant differences in how the US and EU regulate AI. While California is pushing for laws that explicitly protect personal data in AI, the German approach may set a precedent for more lenient interpretations under the GDPR. This divergence highlights the complexity of applying traditional privacy laws to AI technologies, with ongoing discussions about how to reconcile these differing perspectives. By way of brief background, LLMs do not directly memorize the training material they are exposed to. Instead, they analyze vast amounts of text data and learn patterns, correlations, and structures within the language, which are then used to generate responses. This learning process involves creating a complex mathematical representation of a language, which is the model, rather than storing specific pieces of text verbatim. However, because these models are trained on enormous data sets, they might sometimes generate outputs that resemble specific phrases or data points encountered during training, especially if those phrases are common or particularly distinctive. This can occasionally lead to the unintentional reproduction of personal or sensitive information from the training data, even though the model itself does not technically store or recall such information in a traditional, deliberate sense. Of course, that would all be of slim comfort to someone who sees an AI chatbot spit out their home address and social security number in response to a prompt. Special counsel Jack Smith is moving forward with prosecuting Donald Trump for allegedly attempting to overturn the 2020 election, despite a recent setback from the Supreme Court. The court found that Trump might have partial immunity from prosecution for actions taken as president, leading Smith to file a revised indictment. This new version removes claims related to Trump's communications with government officials, including efforts to involve the Justice Department, but retains the core charges accusing Trump of conspiring to reverse his election loss. The case comes as Trump campaigns for the 2024 election, adding tension to the legal proceedings. Trump criticized the indictment on social media, as he always does, calling for its dismissal. The updated indictment also cuts references to former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark as a co-conspirator and modifies Trump's description, downplaying his role as president at the time. The case now focuses more on Trump's role as a candidate rather than his presidential actions. As the case progresses, Trump faces other legal challenges, including cases involving classified documents and charges in Georgia related to the 2020 election. A U.S. appeals court has revived a lawsuit against TikTok by the mother of a 10-year-old girl who died after attempting a dangerous blackout challenge promoted on the platform. The Philadelphia-based Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that TikTok is not shielded by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which typically protects internet companies from liability for user-generated content. If you're at all interested in Section 230, we also have a Max Min episode on that, which will be linked in the show notes. The court found that Section 230 does not apply when TikTok's algorithm actively recommends harmful content, viewing such recommendations as the company's own speech. This decision marks a shift from previous interpretations of Section 230, which had generally protected platforms from liability for failing to prevent the spread of harmful content. The ruling overturns a lower court's dismissal of the case, allowing the mother, Tawana Anderson, to pursue claims against TikTok and its parent company ByteDance following her daughter Nyla's death in 2021. The case could have significant implications for how tech companies are held accountable for the content their algorithms promote. And with that, and as always, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than minimum competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment, leave a rating or review on your podcast player. We'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in a story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever you get your finely crafted podcasts. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and until then, remember, Wednesday before Labor Day, that's basically Thursday, and Thursday is the day before Friday, so really, we're done with the week already.